Welcome to Recycled Idaho, where two recycling industry veterans, Brett Eckhart and Nick Snyder, explore Idaho businesses and organizations that are putting in the work to keep Idaho environmentally and economically viable at the same time. Take a listen to how these entrepreneurs, business owners, and operators are making things happen in the great state of Idaho.
In this episode, I get a chance to sit down with Dennis Fox, owner of Fox Heating and Cooling. Dennis has been in the HVAC industry since 1985. Take a listen and hear how Dennis and his crew keep us cool in the summer and warm in the winter. All right, welcome everybody. It's Nick here with Recycled Idaho. I got my good friend Dennis here. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm doing awesome, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing awesome, man. We've known each other for a while now.
Yeah.
I met you when you were doing a data site. Is that what it was called?
It was called data site, yep. It's
Data.
What we call a co-location facility for data centers, yep.
Gotcha. Well, give our audience a quick introduction to yourself and tell them, you're Dennis Fox and go
Thanks
from there.
for reminding me about that, yeah. So, I'm Dennis Fox. I have Fox Heating and Cooling here in Boise. I got into the industry back in 1985. When I figured out that computers were coming around and they really freaked me out. I figured no matter how cool or how computerized the world got, computers are going to have to stay cool. So went to school, got educated in that, and popped out in 85, and it's just been awesome experience since then. So I've been in the heating and air conditioning industry one way or the other for all of those years. And weird enough, when I got out of school, I worked for a large company called Honeywell out of state, and one of the first contracts that I took care of was one of their data centers.
Okay.
So I've always had my foot kind of in the realm of data centers along the way, one way or the other. And when we met, I was actually working directly for a data center. And at that point, I wasn't in the industry per se directly, and that's when I started Fox Heating and Cooling. So the owner of the data center was big entrepreneurial and fully pushing me to go. It's like, yeah, Dennis, go for it. We'll help you out, whatever. So I was able to work weekends, evenings with Fox Heating and Cooling, and then do the data center, which has an amazing amount of cooling, right, and power that I was responsible for. So still got to play quite a bit. And then as things started to show that the data center probably wouldn't make it financially, I just started to ramp up Fox Heating and Cooling, and when we unplugged the data center, I just ramped up and been doing Fox full-time since then.
So how long has Fox Heating and Cooling been in business?
What a great question, because actually this month is my 7th year.
Seventh, okay.
Yeah, as official, with the state of Idaho registered and all of that, so.
Gosh, it's been 7 years already. I kind of remember when you first started going into that HVAC, the more traditional HVAC
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah. So it's been a wild ride since then. We've grown quite a bit. We don't advertise. We just do word of mouth and referrals. So keeping a good reputation going, and
that's important. No doubt about it. So you don't find any need to advertise out there?
Not yet. I did advertise in one magazine that I got looped into, and I was locked into a contract with them, and it really didn't. I got one lead out of it, I think, over the course of 18 months, and since then, bought another vehicle. I seem to get more advertising off the vehicle driving around.
Yeah.
And so we've grown. My oldest boy, Brandon, he's a journeyman. He's with us full time. And then we have Jerry, who is a good friend of his since like kindergarten.
Okay.
That with this whole COVID thing, he got laid off, and so he's come on, and he just started school in the apprenticeship this month.
Okay, cool.
So, and then my wife and my daughter-in-law help out in the office and make things happen where it really counts.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it's good to see you guys grow. It's good to see you. I was a little worried when you told me that data site was closing its doors.
Yeah.
And is that what kind of pushed you, or were you already kind of doing both?
Well, I was doing both.
But really, did it push you more towards like really just focusing completely?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It was a total freak out mind screw. You don't know how it's going to work out. And the first the first couple months, I mean, I was overwhelmed with how much work I had. And I'm thinking, okay, is everybody just being nice to Dennis week? You know, what's going on here? And it just kept rolling and kept rolling, and it's just been incredible. It's definitely stressful. If I had hair, I'd pull it out. You know, and you know, you just don't know. It's amazing to me for how long I've worked. You know, I've worked for other contractors most of the time in management of some sort, and in the field. But it's amazing how much you don't know that you don't know, because running a business is completely different than turning wrenches. You know, that's the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Getting back and then figuring out, do we have enough work? How am I going to go generate that work? How am I going to collect the money on that work? How do I, you know, just the whole thing though, what I've learned over all the years is I don't focus on the money. I don't focus on the business side of it so much. I focus on the customers and making sure that they're happy, they feel like they're getting their value, and we're taking care of them. And that's the key that I've seen. I'm sure maybe one day I'll get burned pretty hard, but it's been really
everyone does. I mean, but the big picture is what's more important. You hit on two things that hits home for our company, United Metals, at least. The service. That's us. We don't focus. We consider ourselves a customer service company. We're not a metal recycler. We want to have the best service. If that translates to the bin service or making that phone call, making sure, hey, are we taking care of you? You know, is this, you know, was this ticket done correctly? There's so many parts to the service aspect, and that service is going to generate that word of mouth that you talked about.
Yeah.
You know, and if you do that part right, that takes care of a lot of the advertising bill for you, you know.
Absolutely.
And it will take care of you, you know. And you kind of also touched on being the business owner. You're responsible for finding the work, you know. So I don't sign the front of the checks like Brett, who helps with this podcast. Mm-hmm. Brett signs that front of the check, and he'll talk about that some of his social posts. Like, there's a lot of stress when you do the signature on the front of the check, because he truly cares about all of us, you know. So he's got all these other responsibilities that we don't even know about. Yeah. Same with probably your employees. You know, they don't know all the battles that you're fighting, and then there's just so much to that. Now, you've been in business 7 years. We're recently going through, hopefully the tail end, but who knows, of the pandemic.
Yeah.
How's that been for a small business like yourself?
Well, you know what? It's interesting because no one can plan for this. Who would have ever thought that we would be something like this happening? So there's no history to go back to figure out what's going to happen. And so again, like I was saying, Jerry, he got laid off during that, our apprentice, he got laid off during the COVID thing. And, you know, we were busy. So I said, well, heck, come help us out. I said,
What was he doing, if you don't mind me asking?
No problem. He worked in the prison. He was a guard for a long time. And then he was also driving a truck, transporting people or kids for one of the local, not daycare, but, you know, it's where kids go and have fun and parents drop their kids. So that all died off.
Yeah.
And so we've known Jerry since, you know, he was just a little kid. Know him personally, so I know his ethics, his family. You know, he's comes from the right area as far as when I put him in front of my customers, I can teach him the technical side. So, but anyway, so he started working for us, and I said, well, I can't guarantee you 40 hours. Well, he was getting overtime pretty much every week.
Yeah.
And then the whole COVID thing, for us, seems like people started doing more and more home improvements, and I think they're stuck at home. They need to have the cooling. They need to have their house comfortable, and it just has been nothing but growth for us. So we were able to bring Jerry on. I think it's been almost 6 months now, maybe four to 6 months, full-time. You know, he's a full-time employee, benefits the whole bit. And so for us, looking at the growth, it's been actually really, really good for us. And
That's good.
I can't explain why, but it's been good.
You know, and I'm friends with a few other HVAC company guys, and I'm sorry.
No, me too.
Full disclaimer. You know? And they are all so busy. And granted, when it's 100 degrees out, like it's supposed to be 100 this Saturday, I think, which is crazy.
Exactly.
That's really when like you guys get get going, especially on, like, I would imagine, well, both sides, residential and commercial, right? You
Yep.
just get going.
Yep, I just came off a commercial job now with no cooling, and yeah, it starts ramping up. And again, we don't do any new construction, so there's a lot of companies, with the growth in Boise, there's all kinds of new construction, and we don't do any. We do focus purely on retrofits,
Okay.
service, existing clients. We'll do some where people are doing a remodel. It's almost new construction.
I
They're
gotcha.
taking buildings down to the studs, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get wrapped around the axle in the new construction market.
That's not what you're going for, basically.
No,
So
I don't
that's
get to talk with customers. So I'm talking with contractors.
Yeah, I got you. So all those new houses and all that, I'm sure there's contracts for certain HVAC companies that just go in there and put all those units in.
Yep.
You
yep,
know,
Yep. How fast and how cheap can you get it done?
exactly. I was gonna say there's probably not a whole lot of money in that.
No, a lot of stress.
because it's so competitive. Yeah. Going back to the data centers, those basically explain to everyone what that is. What purpose do those serve?
So it's interesting. When I mentioned what is called colo or co-location, there's lots of different types of data centers. So ones that like HP would own, or people own their own data centers and occupy them. But then there's lots of need where I noticed when I walked in here, you got a room down the hall with a bunch of servers in it, and it's on probably the same air conditioning system, or maybe you have a dedicated one, but it's stressful because the businesses have to make sure that their servers are going to run, and they need to stay cool, and they need clean, reliable power. So what do you do if you're growing and you have a business that really relies on that? Well, there's data centers that are called co-location facilities, and it's like a building downtown, a multi-tenant building, one big building with lots of different people in it. A co-location is just that. It's a single data center with lots of tenants. So other people bring their own equipment in, businesses will bring their own equipment in, and from a single rack to cages with racks of servers in them. And the co-location facility makes sure that, along with other things, but the power never goes off and is clean and reliable. The cooling is directed and made sure that your equipment's going to be cool, and there's lots of different changes in that industry. As far as the density of servers, they're getting smaller and smaller, but they still put out the same, if not more heat. So trying to deal with that. And then the security is crazy. Physical security as far as letting people in or videotaping, stuff like that. But then the intellectual security, as far as the networks. And then the physical building itself, making sure that it's ready. So the customers can come in, they go through rigorous security every single time. They can get to their equipment, work on it, but they don't have to think about the infrastructure. They focus on geeking out. It's how I say it. And so I don't geek out, but I understand what they're needing to do, and I understand what the equipment needs, their equipment needs to maintain. So it's a booming industry. Everybody says, oh, but it's in the cloud. Why do I need a server rack somewhere? Well, the cloud is a server rack somewhere, And what I used to explain to people is, if you think of the cloud, a data center or a co-location facility is the sky. There's lots of clouds in that sky, and so all these servers are running. And you may not know it, but when you hop on Google or wherever you're looking to the cloud, you're going to some data center somewhere, and the servers are sitting there. So
it's not just in a magical cloud up there. Is that what you're saying?
it's exactly what I'm saying. So
Mind blown. So I've had the luxury of walking that site with you.
Yeah.
The floor is one of the coolest things to me. How the floors are, I want to call it like a false floor almost.
Yep, raised floor.
Raised floor.
Yeah.
So are they pumping air through that floor even?
Exactly. Yes. We introduce our conditioned air into the floor space in that particular facility. And when I say conditioned, that needs to be cooled, obviously, but humidity is a big kicker too. So here we are in Idaho, which is a desert, very dry. So we would humidify the heck out of that air to make sure that you don't get static electricity on all that equipment.
Oh, okay.
So we're conditioning it. Each piece of equipment was able to cool it, heat it, humidify or dehumidify if needed, and all that air goes down in the floor, and then we're able to direct that air right up in front of the servers and cool them and, take care of it that way.
The power, did you have to switch out the power on a lot of those often? Is that on like a protocol where you do it X amount of months?
No, not the power so much.
Okay.
At a data center, everything's redundant. So,
Okay.
And again, it's up to the owners of the servers to make sure that they're powered correctly. But we would always supply two separate sources of power from two separate, what we call a PDU, power distribution unit, that came from UPSs, so uninterruptible power supplies.
Yeah.
So if one of those systems were to crash and go down, we're still supplying full power to their equipment from a whole nother source. And
So you don't, basically like a backup. If the power goes out,
Yep,
boom, you got a backup.
yep. And if Idaho Power were to blow their lines apart,
Yep.
we had generators that would instantaneously come on. Our
Mm-hmm.
UPSs would maintain power while the generators are coming
Until
on.
they get triggered.
And then
Okay.
everything would come up and go. And so that's pretty common. Lots of different aspects of how to deliver those things on the power, and on the cooling was completely redundant too. I could lose half of my facility as far as the power capacity or the cooling capacity, and I still had enough capacity to take care of the building at full load. So the amount of infrastructure in a data center is phenomenal. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The amount of, working through that decommissioning of that one, how
Yeah.
they tore all the floor out even. We helped with all that. So we really got to kind of see, and you guys helped, decommission all those UPSs and all that in
Yep,
there,
all
too.
those batteries.
All those
and-
batteries.
Yeah.
Just the amount from that spot, it kind of blew my mind, even though we supplied some scrap bins throughout the years.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of scrap that came out of there, the amount of copper just to get that thing running was way more than I ever expected.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So on the residential, on the commercial, on the more traditional HVAC stuff, is there any new challenges that are coming up? Any new inventions coming up that kind of changing the industry?
Yeah, it's interesting. With the Department of Energy, last year, it was actually last July, there was a new ruling that came in. So for residential equipment, even commercial equipment, but specifically, they've increased the efficiency or the requirements of the efficiency on the electric motors. So for years, we'd have what's called a PSC, or a permanent split capacitor motor. That was the go-to for, probably, I don't know how many, 100 years maybe. I don't know when they started coming out. But
Okay.
now we're going to an ECM, which is an electronically commutated motor. It's a high-efficiency motor. And so every furnace now, if you were to go have a furnace put in your house, it's going to have an ECM motor in it.
Okay.
You may not even know it. But so the technology, as far as that goes, even in the lowest efficiency system has changed. And then you take that to the higher efficiency systems, like we do quite a bit of, and the outdoor units have variable frequency drives on them. Everything is variable speed. So our condenser fan motors, our compressors, all of that. I did a video yesterday, actually, just on that. And I don't know, maybe you're sitting at home in your backyard and you hear your neighbor's air conditioner come on, or yours is sitting there and it's like, God, this thing's so stinking loud. I'm able to stand by mine with it in between you and I can talk this low and you'd still hear me. I mean, it's ridiculous.
So they're just incredibly quiet.
Incredibly quiet, which is, again, people think of comfort, you're thinking of heating or cooling. Gosh, it's cold or hot in here. Well, that's one thing, but sound is another way of comfort. So they've really, really reduced the levels of sound on the newer equipment. And then the power consumption. We're able to do the same amount of cooling or the same amount of heating, depending on what you're doing, and use so much less energy. So yes, the technology has changed, which is driving my industry. It's not so much turning wrenches anymore as far as using meters or using your computer. And I get an email overnight and I hop on my computer and I can go into my customer's system and see if it's working right. And so we try to give that level of service where I'm hoping I can respond to a problem with the customer before they even know they have a problem.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So you can jump on your computer and see your customers.
Yeah.
And see their equipment.
Yeah, depending on the type of equipment that we've put in.
Yeah.
We sell carrier equipment, and with their Infinity line, I'm able to have complete access. Not not a security breach, right? I know all about that, but I have access to their system that they don't even have as far as the back side of it.
Because it's hooked up to their Wi-Fi?
Yep, through the Wi-Fi, and I can see how the equipment's running. I can see pressures, temperatures.
I didn't know that existed. That's pretty awesome. Like, so you could be like, hey, your air conditioner might be going out. I need to come service it.
Exactly. We got a problem. Or the newest one's out. I can walk up with my phone, and when I get into range, Bluetooth range of the outdoor unit, I can start reading pressures, temperatures, fault codes. So yeah, it's definitely changing our industry. It's no longer, an old meter we used to call a wiggy to see if it had, it'd shake in your hand to see if you had power.
Yeah.
Well, that ain't going to do it anymore, Or what we used to call, is the air conditioner working? Is it beer can cold? You'd hold the line, and if it's cold like a beer can, yep, it's running great, That stuff, that kind of, that's not the way to do it anymore. So it's kind of interesting. And you guys have played a big role for me. I bring all my scrap here. Anytime I have a piece of equipment, we bring it here, make sure it's reclaimed, right? We want to get the refrigerant out of there. And that's changed a lot too. The R22, which is the older refrigerant.
Yeah.
A lot of companies, put the fear of God in people saying, oh, you got R22, you got to change that piece of equipment. You can't do that. But I can still go buy R22 today, a brand new can of it, and I keep it on my truck.
Yeah, so that R22 at one point was worth a good amount of money. You reclaimed it, you could sell it.
Yeah, you can't sell. You got to recycle it. There's certain recyclers in the nation that take it back.
But they would pay you, wouldn't they? In the past?
Some would. They still will if you have a large amount. But right now, I pay to get rid of it. If I take a 50-pounder to one of my supply houses, there's usually a fee involved.
So you have to pay to dispose of that.
Yeah.
So there's that cost, and you probably build that into your service.
Yeah.
Right. So that R22, what are other? I don't know anything about that side, but I always found it interesting that R22 at one point, I know it was worth some money. Then they made some synthetic. They made a new type to replace it, but that didn't really take off it.
No, there's several different manufacturers out there that do that, what are called like a drop-in replacement. So if I have a system that is completely flat, let's say it's an R22 system and it had a leak in it, and so I walk up and there's no pressure, it's all gone. So I can repair that leak, and then when I put the refrigerant back in, I don't have to put what we call virgin R22 back in. It's pretty expensive. I can put, like, one of them is called a new 22, NUR22. And it's a drop-in replacement. I don't need to change the oil in the system or anything with the metering devices. I can just drop it in and it runs, and it's a lot less expensive.
And does it run just as well?
I think it loses just a tiny bit of efficiency,
okay,
but not enough to affect the capacity of it. It's definitely worth the money saved for that. Most people wouldn't even notice it. I would see it on my gauges and my temperatures, but in the home you wouldn't know, or in the house or in the facility.
So are you guys busier when it's 120 degrees or when it's negative 20 degrees?
Wow. It feels more busy when it's hot.
Okay.
And the reason being is you're running hard, you're sweating. As soon as you get a system running and it's starting to cool off, you leave. And the other thing too is customers, I don't care if it's commercial or residential, when their systems are down in the summertime, they get really cranky, and tempers rise, people get upset.
Mm-hmm.
They'll still appreciate it when you're done and you're getting going, but even the initial phone call coming through, you can tell they're stressed, they're pissed off.
They want it done right then and there.
Yeah, you need to have good customer skills. In the wintertime, they're upset a little bit, but they're way more appreciative, it seems like. They're very thankful that they get heat. They realize it's needed. Their demeanor is different in the winter versus the summer, and so it feels way more hectic to me in the summer.
You think it's because they can maybe bundle up a little bit.
Yeah.
They can get through it a little bit rather than when it's hot. Like it just could be almost like unbearable to even sleep.
Exactly.
So.
And we always focus too. We have what we call our comfort club, which is our maintenance plan. We give discounts on repairs. We do priority scheduling. We do maintenances throughout the year. It's for an easy fee. We do it at our cost, actually. We've dropped it way down just to get customers in there. But when we're scheduling in the winter and in the summer, we always take the very personal approach. If there's an older couple or depending on age, so if they're older or if they're younger, they have young kids or animals that, need that heating or the cooling, we make sure we try to respond to those requests first. Because, there are times, especially in the winter, when it gets too cold, some of us can bundle up, but the older folks have a hard time.
Yeah.
And so we try to make sure they're taken care of 100%.
Do you kind of take priority sometimes on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that's
makes
part of
sense.
what we ask. What is the needs?
So when you're going in there to maybe hook up a new air conditioner or furnace, and you try to upgrade them to like that system, the systems that can inform you of a problem.
Yep.
I'm sure that equipment costs more.
Yeah.
But it could save them. Most importantly, anything going out.
Exactly.
B, save them money monthly. You got to pay a little more up front.
Yeah.
But in the long term, do you think that equipment will save them money from things going down?
It will definitely save them money. It won't necessarily pay for itself. It'll take a long time for it to pay for itself. Because, again, we're in awesome Idaho. We have great utility rates. I mean, we have low cost on gas and on power. So when we're upgrading and people are going for the nice systems, they're not necessarily going, what's our ROI? When are we going to get it paid back? Well, they're looking for more, what's the best thing that I can put in my house? How am I going to be the most comfortable? And what do I have for peace of mind where I don't have to worry about it? You're going to take care of it, Dennis. What is that? And so a lot of people don't realize in homes and in businesses, depending on the type of business, the heating and air conditioning system is the most expensive system in that facility. Bar a new roof, probably about the same level of a new roof. Or
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah, or if you have a plumbing system that needs to be completely replaced, then you're going to be in there. So, and it's a mechanical system that runs, that you rely on, that works its heart off in the hottest part of the year and in the coldest part of the year. So there's maintenance that needs to be done and all of that. But when we're upgrading and talking about the nicer equipment, if you look at people and the cars that they buy, generally, you may get a pickup truck, right? So are you going to go for the bottom line pickup truck? Most of the time, they're in the mid to the uppers. Depending on where you're at.
Because they want the luxury. They want it to be comfortable.
Yeah. So I try to give customers their options, even though I know they may not want that super high efficient system because it's so expensive. But I like to at least let them know, hey, these are options. And this is kind of as much pressure as you're going to get from me. I'll help educate you on what might be best for you and your needs, but I'm not going to try to twist your arm to sell something that I want you to buy. I want to make sure that you're getting.
Yeah.
I'll direct them, and so it's a pretty unique situation. I get I don't like being pressured, right? When I'm buying things, I like to get educated. And then maybe give me your opinion on what you think. And if I trust you, I'll take that opinion into my decision making. And that's how I try to approach it. And another one that I always thought of is I envisioned a guy who just went and bought a Corvette, right? And it's like, oh, this is cool. I wanted one of these forever. I finally get my Corvette. He pulls up to the traffic stop at the light, and here comes another Corvette right next to him. So he reaches over and he rolls down the passenger window and he looks over and says, "Hey, how you doing, man?"
Must be an old Corvette.
Well, yeah, and the other guy pushes a button and his window comes down. It's like, I didn't even know that was a reality.
Yeah.
I guess I am old because I'm referring to that. People don't know you used to have to crank a window.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
That's how all the cars growing up, that's all we had.
Yeah, and it's like if the guy didn't know that there was that option, well, God, I would have liked to have that. How come I didn't know about that? Well, my guy thought maybe I couldn't afford it or didn't really want it. So if I can tell people about everything that's available, at least you may not want to get it, but hey, right on.
Well, that's your level of service. You got to let them know, and then you build trust, And if you build trust just by telling the truth. It's that simple. Like, as I grow older, man, I just learned, if you just tell the truth, it's going to do you some good.
Your life is a lot easier.
Oh, it's so, just say, hey, we offer this and this. I would go with this, and this is why, Not just so you can make an extra $20, because once they learn about that, then they won't call you again.
Exactly.
Then you don't get that word of mouth. You know?
Exactly. You just lost a lot more than $20.
Exactly. It's a long game. It's always been the long game for me on a personal level and on all our brands. It's how our philosophy and our culture is. And the culture is so important. And we love how your culture is. I've always loved dealing with you.
Cool.
You're a Green Bay fan, but I've learned to accept it, you know. And
right?
I'm a Seattle fan over here, you know. I know, you know. Was that Golden Tate? Remember that Golden Tate catch in the end zone?
Yep, that was awesome.
Was it a touchdown or interception?
I think I don't know. I'm gonna plead the fifth on that. I think it was a touchdown.
Okay.
It was a touchdown.
Okay, I'll take it.
I know. But I'm fair. I think, it's sports.
I was not expecting that answer. Well, hopefully we get to watch some football this year.
I know.
You know.
I'm not going to go down that political aspect, but yeah, I've got to.
Oh, no. That's not what this show's for.
Okay, good.
We're here to talk about recycling.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about that. We talked about your industry.
Yeah.
One more question for you.
Yeah.
Have you had any really weird requests that stand out, or like a job that really stands out that you'd like to share?
A weird request. You put
like no one asked you to like put an air conditioner in their dog's doghouse or anything of that nature?
No, not necessarily. For whatever reason, this one's coming to my mind. I have a customer, might be even one of your customers, but he, in our area, it's dry, right? So humidity. And he wanted, this may not sound so weird to you, but it's weird for our industry. He wanted me to be able to humidify his home during the summertime and while we're cooling, where typically it's the last thing that you want to do. We dehumidify. Well, we don't, but nationwide you dehumidify. Mm-hmm. And so it was interesting trying to find a manufacturer actually with the controls that would allow that to happen. And I was only able, I did a lot of research, only able to find one manufacturer that would allow that type of control. And so we made it work. I had to upsize his air conditioner, to be able to handle that extra humidity during the summertime, and then have that humidifier function during the summertime too. So
well, you made it happen.
We made it happen. Yeah. And he's still a customer. So
I love it. How does everyone find you? How do they get a hold of Fox Heating and Air?
What we want to do is they can go to our website, which is foxhvacpro.com. Or, this is horrible, I just know my cell phone. It's
fine.
208-412-4943.
Most business owners would not give out their cell phone, so that's the level of service you're providing.
Yeah, well, we're trying to get them to call the office, but it's my ignorance that I don't know the office.
Oh no, we'll put it up for you.
Okay,
we'll find it.
Cool. So I just know my cell phone, but yeah, and whenever someone's not in the office, it rolls to my cell phone anyway.
Gotcha.
So that's what it's about.
Well, thank you for your time.
Right on. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Recycled Idaho. And as we continue the journey across this great state, we look forward to bringing you more stories of people and organizations putting in the work to do the right thing.